everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jen, and today I'm here to share with you how I use the Evernote program to keep track of my to-do list, my tasks, my goals, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are new here, welcome to the channel. My name again is Jen, and you can find me on Instagram as BostonJen1 and on Ravelry as BostonJen. I get a lot of questions about how I am so productive. And so while this channel is mostly about my creative pursuits, many people say, how do you find so much time for your creative pursuits? And I think this is one of the ways that I'm able to get done what I'm able to get done. And so for years now, folks have been asking over on my audio podcast, the Down Cellar Studio Podcast, how I do things. And frankly, it's just easier to show you. So that's a little bit about what we're going to do today. Now, this system in Evernote has changed and evolved for me over time, and it's continuing to change and evolve, and that's great. But as part of that this year, I've also been sharing it with my mom. And so I think as part of that process, it'll be interesting for us, hopefully, to share what I'm doing, how she's learning it, and how it's going for her. And so we're thinking this will be the first in a series of videos where we're talking about this topic. So if this interests you, settle on in. I think we have a lot of great stuff to share with you. If you are not familiar with my mom, let me introduce you. Her name is Diane, and she is an eBay seller and a creative of many kinds. And so, Mom, why don't you introduce yourself and tell folks where they can find you online too?
Hey everyone, how you doing? I am delighted to be here with you. I am going on this journey with Jen, and hopefully it will also help you out too. You can find me on Instagram at Boston Jen's Mom, and also called Creations Unlimited, which is my eBay store. I also have a meetup group in Massachusetts called Massachusetts eBay E-commerce Online Sellers Group. You're all welcome to join there. It's a private group, and we just share selling tips and tricks and things like that. And that's on Facebook. We did meet in person before this happened. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get to do that again. And my eBay store is called Shop Creations Unlimited. So if you did a search for that, you would find it. I also have a Facebook page under Creations Unlimited that has the link at the top to the eBay store. So
perfect. And we'll link all of that down below, and then also other things that we're going to share with you today. So check out everything right down below. All right. So before we get started, just one disclaimer that I am not in any way affiliated with Evernote. It's a task management system that I like and I've used over the course of the year, but I'm not endorsed by them. I'm not getting any paid promotion for doing this. This is just a product that I enjoy. I will have a link below if you are interested in this and you think you might want to sign up for Evernote, that I will get referral credits for it. So it just will defer some of my cost of using Evernote, but there are both free and paid versions of Evernote. Mom's using free version. I use a paid version. It mostly just gives you more storage space and the option for more devices, but you can check out what, if any, options you might want to check out and check out that link below, but I'm not in any way affiliated with the product. All right, I have some notes here, but I'm gonna just make sure that we have everything ready, and I think we are. I guess just one more thing before I start sharing my screen is that while I use Evernote, if you are a paper person or you use some other task management software that works really well for you, and you're interested in this topic of tracking your goals, stay tuned anyways. This topic and the way that I do things, I think, can easily translate to lots of different kinds of systems. All right, let's go right ahead and share my screen so that you can see how I set up Evernote. All right, we are going to start in one of my main notebooks here. I have a stack for 2021, so all of my key things are located there. And under my 2021 guideposts are sort of my key documents for the year. And the one that I'm going to share with you right now is my 2021 goals, which you can see here on the right. You can see I've chosen a word for the year and I have my 3 primary goals listed. I also did a little bit of journaling at the beginning of the year to kind of get my mind around who I want to be and what I want to accomplish. And then I've listed my 21 for 21 list, which is mostly just like a fun bucket list kind of thing for the year. Do you have any questions as we go through this part, Mom?
No, I like how you have that all set up um, on there and having your word of the year right there. Because I had a word of the year last year and I can't find it.
I did the same thing. So I'm trying to make it more visible, and you'll see that my word of the year is in many places as we go along to avoid just that problem. So, in addition to my 3 goals for the year, I also set quarterly and monthly goals. And so, let's take just a quick step back that if you haven't created any goals for the year, then that's perfectly okay. You could kind of dive right into this at any time. I do think that it can be a great way to kind of just set your focus for the year and just make sure that you're living up to what you want to achieve and are just more focused for the year. And so the way that I often encourage people to get started with that is to just do a brain dump. And so that's something that Mom and I have been doing together as she gets started, to just kind of get everything out of your head that has your attention or you're thinking that you might want to do, and then start categorizing from there. And I'm going to link below to an incomplete projects trigger list from David Allen. He's the genius behind the getting things done method. And it's just kind of a list that will prompt you for things about work, for personal, for health, for your children, for your hobbies, things like that, so that you can just start to get a feel for what are all the things that will need to take my attention this year, and then how do I want to focus them.
Yeah, I like how you have it set up month by month too at the bottom, because then it like Millie's birthday, Mom's birthday, that would be me,
Mm-hmm.
is coming up, and then you can look ahead and say, "Oh, I got to get this done," and you're not waiting till the last minute to go out and do it. You already have it listed right there. Um,
Right.
and
And so so my January goals are things that I set at the beginning of the month, or ideally at the end of the month before. And while, say, your birthday and Millie's birthday are in February, I want to be doing things to be ready for that in January. And so there are other things that I will definitely accomplish in January, but these are the things that I really want to make sure are getting some of my attention.
and is there a reason that you call them goals as opposed to like January tasks or January things to do or
Hmm. I think for me, the word goals has a bit more of an importance or an oomph to it. Like, some of these are tasks, right? Like, I'm going to spend 10 minutes every day, or I'm going to work out. Like, that's a task you can check off. But some things will end up being a little bit more of a bigger project. So it's not just a thing. Like publishing a knitting pattern, there are hundreds of steps involved in that. And so to me, these aren't just tasks, and they are getting me towards sort of my larger goals for who I want to be this year, what kind of designer I want to be, how much output I want to create. So that word feels right for me, but again, I always encourage people just to customize for whatever makes sense. If goals is an intimidating word for you, pick a different word.
yeah, and I think tasks is more of a not kind word. It's like, ugh.
Like, I
It,
should do this thing,
yeah,
not like I get to do this thing.
yeah. It's just like a bring you down kind of word.
Yeah.
So I like that you used it as goals.
It's interesting the things you don't even think about. Like, that's just the word that flowed for me. But again, if goals feels like a rigid thing to you, there might be a different word that works. So customize and take from this what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, and you got all of these things from when you did your brain dump or mind dump or whatever word you want to call that one.
Yes, and I mean, I don't always start with a brain dump, but I think if you've never done any of this work before, that can be a good place to start. Some of mine are leveraged from the things that I accomplished last year and doing my review of those. There will be a link below to a video that I posted about how I review my year at the end of the year and how I plan for the year. So if folks want some more details on how to set goals, then that will be a good place to go. We're not going to dive into a lot of how I got to these things, but I think that's a great resource if you want to hear a little bit more of kind of how I got here. But once you've got your goals identified, then for me, this is the way that I have listed my quarterly and monthly goals. And then we're going to flip over to my 2021 projects notebook. And here is where a lot of my everyday sort of tasks and things that I'm going to reference are going to be here. So before we go into the weekly planning, I'm going to flip over to this 2021 year at a glance planning, just because this is another way that I track things that I think can be helpful for folks. And this is where I simply just list each month of the year and then some things that I may want to be thinking about or planning or doing, so that, you know, if I know that I need to do some prep for a knit along in June, then I don't need to worry about that or keep thinking, when should I be starting that? When should I be starting that in March and April, if I've already decided when it makes sense to do that thing and I have a placeholder for it, and then I'm going back to take a look at this. So this is something that ideally I'm looking at every week so that I can be planning ahead.
Do you have reminders for yourself to look at these things, or do you just automatically know?
So that's a great question. I do actually have a prompt for this in my weekly review, which we're going to pop into next as we look at how I plan out my week. So the way that I plan out my week is that I create a note in my 2021 projects notebook for the week. Now, the way that I list these is that for every week of the year, there is a week number. If you Google it, you can find it. So we're currently in week 4 of 2021. Next week will be week 5, and you go all the way through 52 weeks of the year. Another little tip for you, we actually just set this up for Mom yesterday. If you go into the settings on your calendar, if you use an electronic calendar, there should be an option to view the week of the year. So then at the beginning of each week, you'll see that number on the left side of your calendar, which can be handy. Now, you can put the dates if you want to, whatever works for you. It's just simpler for me to see week 4 than, January, whatever date through the end of the week.
Well, and I suppose if you continue with the system, you can just type in the search week 4, and every year week 4 would come up, and you could see what you did on those previous ones.
Yeah, you can do that, and I have done it before, so it is helpful. So for each week, just like I did for the year, the quarter, and the month, I'm making goals for myself for the week. Some of them will tie into my monthly or quarterly or yearly goals, and some of them won't. And there's no real, right way or wrong way to do this. So you can see some of the things I have listed here: publishing videos, starting work on some knitting and crochet projects that will be gifts, some memory keeping, some admin stuff I need to do for my podcast. And so I'm just making this list of things that I'm definitely planning to get done. Now,
I
for
have
you,
a question
yes,
on the number 2, starting Mom's birthday gift.
yes.
What is it?
I'm not telling you. This item would have a lot more detail if we weren't having this conversation today.
Well,
I've had
that's
to go
not
back
fair.
I've had to go back and edit some of these things as I've been training Mom in how to use Evernote, so I don't
Well, you
give away
didn't
any
you
secrets.
didn't have to do that on my account.
I know. I like a good surprise.
Mhm.
So for some of you, setting this many goals for one week may feel like a lot. So I would say start with what feels comfortable and achievable. You want to be able to check these boxes off by the end of the week, get some success. That's how you build momentum and can keep going for the next week. If the first week you try to do this, you set out 48 things, you accomplish 4, you're probably going to feel really defeated and not want to do this next week, right? So start really achievable. Not every week looks like this for me, but I've gotten to know over time how much I can get done. Then you'll see I also have other things that I could do if I have time. They don't have to get done this week. There's no time limit on them, but there are some other things that I'm thinking or things that have been asked. So my niece Riley asked me to send some funny old videos of her. I can do that anytime. There's not a huge rush on it. I probably will do it this week, but I don't have to. Like, there's nothing riding on that, right?
Right.
Then my next section is for things that I said I wanted to do every day. I've set up these check boxes. So today's Tuesday. I did do all 3 of these yesterday. Today I did my spinning and I checked in with my test knitters. So this is just an easy way. It's not something where up here I can just check it off and be done with it, which is why I've noted here that I will check those off in the section below. Now again, this may or may not work for you. You might just want to wait and check it off and know that you did it, but it can be really easy at the end of the day to go, did I do 10 minutes of spinning while listening to that podcast yesterday, or was that this morning? So if your memory's not great like mine, having checkoffs can be a good thing to do here. And then same thing with these. And I don't, as you can see, today's Tuesday. I didn't check these all off yesterday. Yesterday I did do a circuit class, and today I did a 45-minute yoga class. Now I can check those off. And then I want to make 4 Project Life pages. This clearly I should have put up in, oh, actually I just have it twice. I copied it and pasted, and this can go because I pasted it above the check boxes. I also have some things that I like to do every week. They're just some things for photo cleanup, getting ready for my podcast, and scheduling social media. If there are things that you know you want to do every week and want to make sure that you're tracking, you can do this. But again, this might be kind of level 2 kind of stuff. My next section, which is currently empty, is my favorite section, which is the to done. So this can be a placeholder for things that I've set up here that I'm planning to do. So once I publish this video that you're watching right now, I will check it off, but I will also then move it from this section down to done so that I can see what I finished at the end of the week. This is also a great place to write down things that weren't on your list, but that you did accomplish and that you might want to remember or track or look back last week and say, you know, what did I get done last week?
I like that.
Excellent. So yeah, as I go through the week, things will move from my goals list to down here. And then what I do at the end of the week, and this is something that I'm doing differently in 2021, instead of having a separate document to review the week, I am ideally moving most things down to here. And then I'm asking myself just a series of questions, like listing out some highlights. I think this can be a great way to add sort of a gratitude practice into your week. So what were some of my highlights from the past week? And you can write these as the week is in progress if you want, or you can do it at the end of the week. What do I wish I spent more time on? What am I proud of? What do I want to change for next week? How did I do making progress towards my goals, which are all listed below this? And I'm telling myself, make some notes down there, and then add some of my delights to my delight list, because delight is my word of the year. I am trying to track that, and I have a list of those that's also here in my Evernote projects. So then I would go through and just do a quick look and say, how did I do towards these, and make some notes about how week 4 helped me get towards any of these things. So publish at least 4 videos. At the end of this week, I should be able to add Evernote video with mom here. Does that make sense so far, Mom?
It does. And so that you took from your 2021 goals and you just added it to the bottom of every week.
I did. Yep. And then at the very bottom here, so you were asking, how do you know to look at that 2021 year at a glance planning? So the way that this kind of follows for me is like the beginning of this document is what I'm planning to do. Then towards the middle, we get to the to-dones, right? So what did we actually accomplish? Then we have let's review the week and see what we did and what do we maybe want to do differently next week? What did we learn? And then this is where we can look at how to prep for the week ahead. So this is new for me this year. We'll see how this goes, but I want to look at my monthly and quarterly goals to see if there's anything else that I want to add. So maybe as we're getting into the end of January, I'll say, you know, in February, I think I really want to tackle this thing. I can start adding those things in there if they're coming to mind. I should be looking at the calendar for the week ahead just to see if there's anything that requires prep, or maybe conversations Dan and I want to have about how to plan for the week. I have a separate Google Calendar for planning out designs and podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that. So that's new for me this year. I'm worried that I won't look at it. So this is my reminder to go there. And then same thing with that 2021 year at a glance planning. This is my reminder. Go look at this thing as you're planning for the next week.
That's great. I love those questions. And so, if you finished one of your goals, you don't just stop there, right? You can just add something else, or
For like your weekly goals or?
any one of your goals. So like your yearly, quarterly goals. You say you finished your quarterly goal ahead of time. Is there something else that you would add in so that it takes up your time, or would you spend more time on other?
I think it just depends on what else is going on. It may just mean that I have more time to spend on one of the other goals in my quarterly goals, or maybe I'll just add more. So like, say it's March, it's getting towards the end of quarter one. I may just add those to the March goals. To me, it doesn't really matter where things land. But yeah, I think that's a choose your own wherever that feels right to you. And I think especially as you're just getting used to this process and not really sure how much you can get done, sort of start small and then yeah, definitely add goals, whether it's to your week, your month, your quarter, as you finish them and have more time.
Well, because one of my goals is to organize the basement, which anyone knows that's been here. It's a Herculean task,
Hmm.
but we've got new shelving and all kinds of new things down here. Um, so I thought I would do it instead of buy the whole basement,
Yeah,
do the fuse box room first, and this week see if I can try to get through that room. And I don't know how fast or slow that would be. And then if I finish it, then I should just add another section.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Because and I think it's again, it's about, especially in the beginning, building that momentum and getting those wins. You get that by doing the things and sort of being in that action. So if you finish one room and the next logical step is pick a next room to start with, or pick a shelf, or pick whatever feels reasonable, depending on where you are in the month, then yeah, go ahead and tackle the next one.
I think, yeah, and I think it gives you like that other question, what were you proud of? What, so if you finished it ahead of time, you can do the, pat on the back, like, wow, that didn't take me as long as I really thought it was going to take to do that. I could probably do X or Y. I think before we start these tasks, we think they're insurmountable because everything is, well, if you look around, you see a lot of things. I use recycled boxes that all my friends give me, and they're
Right
all
behind you.
behind me.
But that
So
packing station is looking awfully organized now because you've
it is.
been
So
working on it.
that was one of the first things we tried to get organized. Um, so yeah, so we'll just keep going, but it does make you feel better, and you need to be proud of those little things that you've done, even if it's pick up two things and that was your goal. That was my
Yeah.
goal last year.
Yeah,
I
pick up
think,
a few things around the house every
yeah,
day.
right?
It
And
was,
then it adds up. And so if you didn't do it yesterday, you could pick up four things tomorrow.
for sure.
So,
Well, and I think that's a great lead into where the real work happens is today, right? Like
mhm.
you can say I want to do these things over the course of the week, but that's all just kind of, out in the ether. Then you have to take that and decide each day, well, I've said these things are important to me for this week. What's going to get done today to get me closer to that? And which is why I think it makes it easier to bite things off. Like you're looking at your, say, January goals, but what are we going to focus on this week, right?
Mhm.
So I think this is where like the real heart of it is. This is where the real work gets done. And you could, if you want, make a new note for today and put today's date, and then look at your week 4 goals and pick a few things that you want to do today. And in the past, that has been something that I did when I was working out of the house 5 days a week, having something like Evernote that was on my 2 different phones and on my iPad and on my computer. I could be looking at it on the train. I could be looking at it at home. If I needed to send an email, I could do that while commuting. That's not so much of a factor for me right now, where I'm only working outside the house 1 day a week. So I have switched to doing the daily part on paper. And so what I've done is I just purchased this from Target, from the dollar spot section. I got these 2 years ago and they did them again this year. I don't know if they had them last year, but it's basically just a notebook. But there is a monthly calendar for each month at the beginning. So here's January. I haven't written anything in it yet, but there's one of these for every single month, which I think is handy. And I think that in the past, I've used this to track exercise when I really wanted to make sure that I was getting my steps in my exercise. Until I had that unlock, seeing that on paper in my face was very helpful for me. Now I'm doing that pretty consistently. And so I track that in Fitbit, but I don't feel like I need to see it every day. I think I'm going to put my editorial calendar notes here so that, again, as I'm flipping through, I can see that here. But you could use that for whatever you want, or you could just use a notebook, which is what I've been doing for the past several months. And then for each day, I make a list, drawing from my week 4 goals of what I would like to get done. So here's a peek at my actual to-do list for today.
Hold it a little closer, Jen, because you're sharing the screen. It's hard to see.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
there.
you know what? Why don't we stop sharing for just a minute? We can always go back into Evernote, and maybe that will be
Oh,
easier
that's better.
for you to see. Now, of course, I can't read it this way, but
Yeah.
that's okay. But there are things about, tidying the house and getting my workout in, recording this video with you. So these are things that I know that I really want to get done for today. And sometimes what I will do is, like with the weekly goals, I'll have what I am planning to get done this week. Those are my goals. And then I'll have some extra ones. I do also have some extra ones on this Post-it note,
Yeah.
which I may not do today. And I've already agreed with myself that's totally fine. If I do this top part, then I'm meeting what I expected of myself for today. And you'll see that some of these are: spend 30 minutes on this project, spend 15 minutes on this, walk for 15 minutes. Now, when I get out there, if I choose to walk for a half an hour or an hour, depending on what else I have, in my day, that's wonderful. But this is what I need to do to meet myself where I am right now. And I encourage people to do that only because I think it's easy to say, clean out the pantry. Well, then that turns into a 4-hour affair. You've got nothing else done. Whereas if you did 20 minutes on the pantry and set your timer, and at the end of 20 minutes, you say, I still have plenty of time and I'm kind of feeling like I'm in a groove, go ahead and do some more. That's great. But if you ended up doing 20 minutes on your pantry or whatever that goal might be every day this week, at the end of the week, it would still be done.
Right.
And maybe not at the expense of other things that maybe were more important, but you were just in the groove of cleaning out that pantry when it could have gone 4 more days and really not a big deal.
Right. Well, as far as note keeping, you said, your notebook, Post-it notes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago, Kim, my friend, my neighbor, and I devised this Post-it note thing, and she has superseded the Post-it note. I think she even has Post-it notes on her husband.
Probably does, yes.
Yeah.
But they work for her, so she goes with it.
Well, the reason that we did that was because at the end of doing your Post-it note, and then it goes in the trash.
Mhm.
So we felt good by the end of the day, like tearing up all of our Post-it notes as we were doing them, and then there were hardly any left.
Yeah, that
So
can be really satisfying. And that's why, there's not a one size fits all approach. Like, some people like checking off a checklist or crossing things out or moving it to that to done section. Like, there's a million different ways to do it. So whichever way feels most satisfying, that's what you should do.
yeah.
Because
And
you
the
don't
three
have
that
to.
were left over go on, you do them the next day. with whatever else. Like the next day, you might have to go to the doctor's for something. So that's going to take a chunk out. So there was a post-it note for it. So when you did it, you still tore it up, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever works.
Yeah. There's so many different options.
I use these longer sheets of paper that you get in the mail when people try to get you to spend money for them or donate
Yeah.
money to them. Because I don't like to be wasteful. So
Mhm.
I use these, and I can write 3 or 4 things on it, and then I tear them up. So
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I like that. One other thing that I do here that's similar to my weekly note is I do write my delight for the day. So I'm putting together a care package for someone today. So that's really fun. I know that it's going to make their day. I don't even know that they know it's coming. So that's my delight for today. And those can be things that I'm doing or things that are done to me, but it's just a way for me to track my word of the year. And then I have a little to done here as well. For these things, I'll just check them off. But for other things that I've made progress on, or that weren't on my list, it is just a nice way to look back. Because sometimes at the end of the week, you think, I didn't get anything done this week. And sometimes it is just gratifying. Like you don't have to write down every time you do a load of laundry, but if it helps, write it down.
right, and doing it on the notebook, you have that list. Doing it like this, they're in the trash.
Right. Which again can feel good. So it's
Right.
just a matter of what works for you. And I don't write every single thing down here either. And I think you and I were talking about this earlier, Mom, but like, so this is a pretty long list for today. I would encourage, if you're new to this, maybe write down 3 things that you plan to get done and then some sort of bonus items, again, to just kind of build that momentum, but also because it can be hard to know how long things will take. And so as you're getting used to that, that can just be something to keep in mind. The other thing that I was saying to Mom when she and I were chatting about this is that I kind of have a natural planning kind of brain. That's just how my brain works. So there are other things that I know needed to get done today that are not on that list. So I need wood for the stove, otherwise this house is going to get pretty cold. I don't need to write that down because I know for sure it's going to happen. I'm not going to let myself get cold. I knew that I wanted to do my hair and my makeup because we were going to do this video, and I needed to do a mountain of dishes. I had a 10 o'clock Zoom meeting that I needed to watch, but I didn't need to take notes on, and I didn't need to be on camera. That's a great time for me to do both things. That sort of stuff comes natural to me. But if it doesn't come natural to you, I would recommend looking at the 3 or 4 things you want to get done for today and write them into a calendar so that it's not just, all of a sudden at 7 o'clock, oh, I didn't do any of the things yet. It's really looking at where do I think there will be available buckets of time and then slotting those in there if that's helpful for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, just so people know, everybody is so different, right? We've come to learn this. There's slow learners, fast learners, unbelievably organized, unbelievably disorganized. There's all types of, and in between. You have to figure out what you are. Jen and I met yesterday, and we just talked like this. And we were, well, we should do this, or we should tell them this, or we should do that. That night, last night, I get an email in order of all the things that we talked about. She never took a note. She just, like, it totally amazes me that you can take all of that and then disseminate it logically to me, where I have, like, I'm creative and organized and all of those things. But as far as writing it down and getting it out and getting it back, I have a harder time with that. So you have to find but each person has to figure out where they fall in this,
Yeah,
category, right?
absolutely. And sort of recognize sort of your weak spots, and not as a way to judge yourself or put yourself down, but to say, this is something that I tend to struggle with. What things can I put in place to make that easier? I use a lot of reminders on my phone. I set a lot of alarms. I do put a number of things in my calendar so I don't forget them, because relying on your brain to just remember everything, I think for me that doesn't work. I wouldn't have been able to remember all of the things that you and I talked about yesterday and put that succinctly. Granted, I've had a lot of training to do that kind of thing, but also if I was thinking about, wait, is it on Tuesday that I have to order the stuff for our dairy delivery? And then what day do I do the order for that? And did I send that email? Because all of those other things are already documented somewhere, it also frees me up to think about the things that are coming at me real time, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the David Allen method, and the gist of that getting things done is to get everything out of your brain into a trusted system that you will then go back and review regularly. And if you can do that, then your brain is working at its best, because your brain isn't really meant for remembering, it's meant for processing. So you can better process. And I know lots of people say, I have a great memory, which is wonderful. I don't have a great memory, but even if you do, it's not actually what your brain is intended for. And that you can probably function even better if you can get things out of your brain and into a system. And then really you can just be firing on all cylinders all day doing other things.
Right. And I think, making a system that works for you is really the key because, I mean, how many times do you say, like, well, even this, like we were trying to find the goals that I wrote for last year.
Yeah.
I knew I did it. Where was it? You know? Um, so to be consistent, to do something that you're going to be able to go back and find it for next year. I think one of the good things about Jen and I both do Evernote differently.
Mhm.
I use the tag system. So I put different tags on each thing. So if it's something that I'm looking up for eBay, I have an eBay tag on it, or goals you can use as a tag. So I went in and searched when I was looking for the goals and I put goals, but clearly I didn't put it in Evernote. So because it didn't pop up.
Because you were using multiple other systems as
Right.
well. And you
Right.
had different notebooks and physical folders and things like that.
Yeah. So then I went to my meetup folder because you had come to do our meetup.
Right.
And I did find some of the things there, but not everything.
Right.
So you got to get away from having things all over the place. Actually, you gave me a good idea as well for that. You said to take a picture of it and put it into Evernote.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Even for work meetings and things, you can just take a picture of a notebook page if you went to a meeting and wrote something down. And if you really think you're going to access it a lot, you may want to take the time to type it up. But if not, and you just want it in there, put a few keywords about what it was. That way, if you're searching in a database like Evernote or Trello or any one of those systems, you're likely going to be able to find it. And then it doesn't really take any time to snap a picture and click upload.
Right.
Yeah, and I think so. We're planning on doing at least a small series of videos about this. So I think those are some topics that we should definitely dive into. And on the next video, we're going to look at how you're starting to use Evernote differently. And I think your key point there, don't be afraid, you're going to be in good shape, is that I think your first impulse is very similar to most people's. And it's even what I did in the beginning with Evernote. And people do it with paper files as well, which is to think, I need a folder for everything. I need a tag for everything. I need to separate everything out. But really, your brain doesn't actually work that way. And you don't remember that you put something under bathroom. If when you bought a toilet and you saved paper, if you had one file of household stuff, you'd probably find that bathroom manual much quicker than if you had a file for bathroom or a file for appliances. And probably over different points of time, you create files for all different things. The simpler you can make it, the easier it is in the end, especially with systems like Evernote or other task management software. Their search engines are pretty good. So even if you didn't file it 100% properly, you can probably still find it. So I think there's just one more thing that I want to show about sort of how I wrap up my week, and then we are going to close out for today. So let me switch back over and share my screen with you just to go back to our week 4 goals. So what I would do at the end of the week, now this would ideally look much differently because I would have checked things off, moved things down to the to done section. Ideally, all of these things are checked off, and if not, I've at least thought about why I chose not to do them. And then I've done my review. So what I would do then is I would click on the note here and I would duplicate it. And from this, I would make my week 5 note. And so as I do that, then if there are things that I'm going to continue, then I can just uncheck these boxes for next Tuesday. And then everything is kind of set up already for the week. Now, if I chose different goals for the week in terms of my daily things, I could add those in here. And then these ideally, if they're all done, I would delete them. And if not, if there was a couple things that are left over, because let's face it, we're all human, you don't get to everything necessarily, then you can leave it on there for the next week. Or sometimes you decide, I really thought that was a good idea at the time, but I'm going to choose not to do it. If it's not important to you, go ahead and delete it. But at least then you have your template. So that's what I do. I duplicate the note and then I use that as the base for the next week.
And then change the week to week 5.
Yes. So when you duplicate a note, I'll go ahead and do it now. It will say copy of or duplicate of that week, and you can just change the title on it. So instead of it saying copy of week 4, I would just change it to week 5. It is handy to put the zeros in there because when things sort alphabetically, you want the 01s through 09s to show up before the 10s, but you can do it however you want. But that's how I wrap up my week.
Very good.
So I hope that this was helpful for folks. Do you have any questions, Mom, as we're wrapping up? I know you got a sneak preview of this yesterday.
No, I think that having a buddy to do these things with too is very helpful. So Jen and I have a similar goal. I haven't really set all my goals because I just started dumping everything out of my brain. But that is to try to do some type of an accounting once a month. And so we're going to do that together. So that way we know at the end of the month, we're going to meet and we're going to talk about it and see what we did, what we didn't do, how most of the things will probably be how I could do it a little bit better. But sometimes I have a little bit of valuable input.
You always have something to offer. And plus, it's while I'm generally self-motivated, there are things that I could be inclined to say, it's not that big of a deal if I just skip it. But if I know you and I are going to chat, it does feel good to say I got it done. Right. So sometimes if that thing takes 4 minutes, then we'll just get it done. And then I can tell you I did them all. Right.
So I think getting that person, I think that's also, it's anything like weight loss, exercise.
Yeah.
You know, if you have someone who you trust and you know, because some of the things maybe you don't want the whole world to know. And so but you want help with it, you know, and having that person to be able to share ideas with. My word that I've picked is fearless. And I know most people that know me would think, what did she pick that word for? She's like outgoing. She's never afraid of, she runs a meetup group. She's, you know, never afraid to give her opinion on something. She's strong, all of those words. But that's not really true. And I think,
those things are true, but also at the same time.
So fear, last year I lived the whole year in fear. Because I'm immune compromised, I did not go out. I did not get a haircut. I did not see anybody. And it's not a very good way to live. So, and I know others have done that same thing. So I've decided that I want the word fearless to be, because I need to make a way to do some of those things, even though I'm afraid, but be able to push beyond my limit, you know, and that's where your trusted advisors come in too. So
yeah, having someone to bounce ideas off. And just to be clear, you're not suggesting doing anything unsafe or against sort of COVID guidelines. You are still going to be extremely safe, but
Well, put it this way. So I haven't ever let anyone in my house for a year.
except
So,
for a couple people like us.
right.
But yes.
So yesterday or the day before, I let my friend Terry, who brings me boxes
Mhm.
and is my dear friend, I said to her, she usually waits outside on the step. So I said to her, "You can come in." And
Yeah.
she was like, "What?" And she didn't make a big thing out of it, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And I let her into the living room. I sat on the far end of the living room. She sat on the other end of the living room. We both had our masks on,
Yep.
but it was out of my comfort zone.
Hmm.
And I still did it. And I am very happy that I did it. So, and I think being vulnerable is something that you need to let yourself be in order to get better at things. And
Yeah.
doing this, like you said, don't be afraid, mom. We're gonna see what you
Yeah.
did next time.
Yeah. That's
It,
scary.
it is fearful, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna do it right. She's gonna think I'm crazy. I should know all this stuff. These are all the things you say to yourself.
Yeah. But you wouldn't
Well,
say that to me. If
no,
I was learning something and you were teaching me, you wouldn't say, come back next week and be perfect. We're always harder on ourselves than we are on other people. And I think it's so good of you, A, to have shared that at all, and B, to be willing to do this with me, because I've been working on this stuff for a while, so it can be hard sometimes to even remember why I do things or what's important or some other little things that just really kind of make it work for me. And so I think you can come at it with that fresh perspective that hopefully lots of people watching are having, where they might have a question and you can be that voice for them and ask those questions, and to share, and also to share, Jen, I know you do it this way, but over the course of the last week, I figured out that I'm going to tweak this part and do it this way. That's awesome. It might end up being something that I want to change, and maybe not, but it might be helpful for somebody else. And I think there's so much value in sharing. And so we're doing that here in front of hopefully a large audience. But again, you could just do that with that sort of trusted advisor person or a group of people, your people. You could be sharing things like this with them. And I think especially in today's world where we're all kind of Zoom fatigued and you just feel like you have to be on and what are we going to talk about? Like, you could propose to someone, let's have coffee on Fridays and talk about this stuff. And then it's not like, oh, I don't want to hear about her kids anymore. I have nothing exciting to share. All I've done is laundry and cooking all week. Like, talk about something else. This can be a good way to connect with somebody.
yeah, I really like it. And I think also for the audience members, I think if you have a way that you're doing it, please leave a comment below because we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to know what you're doing that's working, what you're doing that may not be working, and
Mhm.
maybe we can try to help you too.
Yeah, I would love that. Any suggestions? Would love to see them, and would also love to hear about any questions that you guys might have for us. If there's enough of them, then we might do a video just kind of answering those or sharing good suggestions from others that we think might be helpful. So I think that is going to wrap it up for us today, Mom. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to check out that year in review video that I've published. I will link to that down below. I will also have that link for Evernote, which has my reference code in it. Again, I do get some credits if you choose to join, but it won't cost you anything extra. And we will be back again soon with another in this series of videos. So thank you for joining us, Mom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.